does feel like an uphill task for Arsenal. Will they have the faith, though, that they can defy the odds?
Well, they do at least go into it on the back of that 5-1 win over Man City, don't they? And that gives them a bit of confidence. It's a reminder of how dangerous they can still be, even with their injuries. So they'll take some heart from that. But the odds are against them, as you said, Rob. I mean, if we look in the history of the League Cup, there's only been one instance of a team recovering from 2 goals down in the first leg of a League Cup semi-final to reach the final. That's out of 32 in which it has happened. So it is a tall order. They're going to have to make a bit of history tonight in order to overturn the deficit. But, you know, if they score first, then the tie certainly becomes interesting, doesn't it? They haven't got the best record at St James's Park. They've only won one of their last 4 trips there. But they'll be hoping to get that early goal and maybe make things a little bit nervous for Newcastle.
Yeah. What they will need tonight, without doubt, is character and spirit. Is that something that we're seeing signs of, epitomised perhaps by players like Miles Lewis-Skelly and Declan Rice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lewis-Skelly at the weekend, grabbing his first professional goal, stepping up in a huge moment, a goal of real class. You know, the celebration showed, in my opinion, a lot of spirit, a lot of fun as well in that. You know, only taking the mickey out of Erling Haaland after he'd been quite critical in the first game. I think you'd expect him to respond to that scenario, scoring a massive goal in a massive game. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. And he kept Phil Foden, PFA Player of the Year, still very, very quiet. He didn't have a shot, he didn't create a chance, he didn't complete a dribble in 70-odd minutes on the pitch. That was Phil Foden. And Declan Rice, 2 assists again. I think since really the November international break, but particularly since the turn of the year, Declan Rice's performance level is just getting better and better and better. And he completely dominated a Man City midfield that, yes, does have issues at the moment, but it's a very different test against Newcastle's, which in Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton and Sandro Tonali have really, really clicked and gone to a next level in the last few games. So Mikel Arteta on screen will be hoping that both Lewis-Skelly and Declan Rice take that form from the weekend into that game tonight.
Yeah, I wonder, though, how much do you think Arsenal perhaps haven't got the credit they deserve this season, considering they're having to deal without their top player in Bukayo Saka?
Yeah, it was a huge loss to lose him, wasn't it? And it could easily have thrown them off course completely, couldn't it? But they were 6 points off Liverpool in the title race when he got the injury. They're still 6 points off now. You know, the gap hasn't got any wider. They've coped well. And we can see their form over the last 21 games here. So they've won 14 of those games. Not a bad return at all, really. They've drawn 6. They've lost 1. Now, we're not counting the FA Cup loss to Man City. That is technically registered as a draw, as it happened on penalties. But overall, it does show that they have coped well. Remember, Saka's not the only one who's been out during this period. They've had spells without Odegaard, without Havertz, without Nwaneri, without Sterling. They have had to chop and change a lot, but they have managed to just keep going and stay in touch with Liverpool. Of course, they have a tall order in this semi-final, but they'll go there with a bit of hope at least, and knowing they have coped quite well without their talisman so far.
Yep. OK, let's talk about that man there. He's just disappeared. He did miss a big chance on Sunday, but how much will the goal, the performance of Kai Havertz encourage not just him, but the Arsenal fans as well, from what they've seen?
Well, he didn't disappear on Sunday, did he? Because he could have sort of crumbled after missing that huge chance in the first half, but takes his goal so nicely. I thought this was one of the most impressive goals of the night, given what he'd been through in that first half. He sets up Odegaard so early on. I thought he showed amazing awareness in that moment, amongst the maelstrom, amongst the chaos of the early stages of a huge Champions League game, to realise that Odegaard was in a better position. He then misses a massive chance himself, but responds like that. And he's now got 15 goals in all competitions so far this season. It's easy to forget that he was signed by Mikel Arteta to primarily play in midfield. Gabriel Jesus' injury and a number of injuries around that forward line has meant that he's had to play up front this season. I think his work rate's super impressive, his pressing's amazing, his aerial ability is kind of unmatched amongst Premier League centre-forwards. And yes, could he be a little bit more clinical in certain times? Absolutely. But I think his goal return of 13 league goals last year, 15 in all competitions this year, deserves a little bit more respect.
Yeah. It was a brilliant performance against Manchester City on Sunday. It was capped off by the substitute Ethan Nwaneri. How big is the argument now that he should be considered a starter?
I think he's really pushing, isn't he? I mean, this was another brilliant goal from him, very similar to the goal he scored against Girona in the midweek win over over Girona in that game. I mean, it is becoming a bit of a trademark, isn't it? And it was another example of just how effective he can be for this Arsenal side. So it's 7 goals in only 650 minutes played so far this season. And we see his ranks here compared to his Arsenal teammates. And you can see that he comes out on top in a whole host of these attacking metrics in terms of his goal threat and his shots. So he's top for goals with 0.97 per 90 minutes. We'll come back to that incredible number shortly. He's also top for shots on target, for accuracy. He's top for conversion rate as well. So these numbers show you that he is such a goal threat for this Arsenal side, even at only 17. And we can compare them as well to Premier League players as a whole this season. And we see that of players with a minimum of 500 minutes this season, Nwaneri is actually top for goals per 90 minutes, 0.97 there, putting him ahead of Christopher Nkunku of Chelsea. Of course, he's been prolific in the Conference League. He's also ahead of Alexander Isak, of Mohamed Salah, of Erling Haaland. Of course, the caveat, I suppose, is that he hasn't played nearly as many minutes as these guys. It would be very difficult to sustain that scoring rate over a longer period. But what we are seeing is his ability to really affect games and make a difference in the final third. And when we talk about Arsenal maybe lacking a killer in those positions after a frustrating transfer window, then maybe he is someone who can come into the team and start making a real impact.
I wonder how important this game will be for Mikel Arteta, especially with regards to needing a trophy.
Well, I think it's actually got even bigger in the last few weeks as well, with Arsenal's form so improving. I think it feels like there's a bigger opportunity now with Newcastle's last few home results being a little bit poorer. They're out of the FA Cup. The Champions League looks like it's going to be a real tall order for them to win, but they're still amongst the looser favourites, let's say, and Liverpool will be very difficult to overturn in the Premier League. But having finished 8th, 5th, 2nd, 89 points last year, I think it's fair to acknowledge that for a variety of reasons, injuries, red cards, maybe a drop in performance level, they haven't quite been at their absolute best this year. They're on track for 79 points. It's obviously 10 fewer than last year, but still the only trophy that he's got to show from this really impressive spell at Arsenal. You know, rebuilding a club's ethos, its philosophy, getting a number of very talented young players to really blend together so effectively. He's still only got that FA Cup to show at the end of his first season, so he will be desperate to win another trophy. And given their form coming into this after scoring 5 goals against Man City and easing through to the Champions League last 16 as well, I think there'll be a certain amount of confidence in the Arsenal camp that they can overturn this.